Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Yeah, real niggas, all day, just me, by myself, on the block, holding it down, gun in my waist, straight face, all day, not a day, in jail, by myself, one bed, no pillowcase, one pillow, didn't nobody write me, it was early, woke up, went back to sleep, took a nap. You ever go night-night, nigga? You ever go night-night, nigga? Everybody go night-night, nigga. What?
Alright people, welcome back to APodAmongstMen. I'm your host Steve B. We're trying something a little different this week, so let me give you guys a rundown. I had a guest lined up to do a recording on Sunday, and it's now Wednesday, and obviously that guest is, let's just say, slipped through the cracks. So I'm trying out a solo episode. I'm going to give this a test. If it sucks, don't worry, we won't do any more of them. And if it's good, hey, let me know. Maybe I'll do a couple more. You know, it's tough doing this podcast where it's based off of having guests every week. Trying to find new and interesting guests is a tall order when you're, not Joe Rogan. I'm just some fucking asshole from Jersey. I know regular guys. I mean, that's what this show is based off of and based around is regular guys and the daily life of the everyday man. But, it's a challenge. Anybody else out there who, has a podcast, I'm sure can attest. It's not easy to get guests, especially a lot of the time. Some of the guests you want either aren't interested or are busy or unavailable, or they just don't show up, which luckily hasn't really happened. This is just a scheduling conflict. But first off, let me get into a couple things. I want to give a few shout outs. Obviously, the Three Ninjas podcast. You guys are always showing love and support, and I want to show it back. You guys, fucking great show, man. If you guys haven't listened, go check out Three Ninjas. Also, to Keep It Basement, my boy Mike Sweeney, Tom Zappia, Alex Nicholas, when I guess he's in town. What the fuck, bro? You on the road or something? I haven't heard you in a bit. But shout out to those guys. Those are, Sweeney's the local podfather, if you can call him that, even though he's a lot younger than me. But shout out to him. He's always out there lending support and knowledge, whatever he can do to help out some of us other guys who are newer in the game than him. Shout out to Chad and Corey at the Perfected Podcast. If you guys keep your ears open, I'll be recording with them next week. So make sure you tune into them and hear my stupid ass over on their podcast. And shout out to my buddy Brian from the band Seconds to Say. You guys have heard him on here a few times before on the band episode. It was the episode called You Never Know. Brian's good dude. I saw him and his wife at Target this weekend. Shout out to them. They were nice to my son. But anybody else maybe I'm forgetting. Eight Graves, shout out to them. Brent and Nick, good dudes. Go listen to the music. They got a bunch of new stuff out on Spotify. They're doing great. They're kicking ass. Make sure you tune into them. But I don't know how guys like Bill Burr and Theo Vaughn do these podcasts solo. It's weird. I'm just kind of talking into the void. I don't know. There's no responses. There's nothing. It's a weird thing, and I'm not used to that. I'm not one of these guys that talks to himself. You see him in the car, like, I think that guy, he's probably on Bluetooth, but really he's fucking psycho's just having a full-on conversation with himself. And that's what I'm doing right now, and it's weird. I'm not a comedian either, so this might not even be funny. You guys might be tuning in, fuck this guy is not talking to anybody. So this is a weird thing, and I gotta get used to it. And I would appreciate a little feedback from you listeners out there. So, like I said before, if this goes well, we might do more of them, because it would be a nice change where I kind of have total control over the podcast for once. And but it's not easy, so definitely, it's a testament to some of these other guys that are able to hold an hour of content just on their own, talking into the void, So, first thing I want to start talking about is the Joker movie. Obviously, this is a big big cultural thing going on. This Joker movie came out last week. I don't know if anybody else has seen it. I have. So just a heads up, here's a little spoiler alert. I'm going to give a quick little recap of the movie. Not a recap, but a review, I guess you could say. So if you're a big-time nerd, a comic head, you're big into DC, you like the Batman comics, this is not the typical Joker origin story. This is a much more humanized look. It's a character study, Like this is it's a story of a guy who suffers from real and severe mental illness, and as you go through, you see how the world is just a cold, relentless, unforgiving fucking place for this guy. And it, if you've read The Killing Joke or you've seen the animated movie, The Killing Joke is a story about how, well, not about how, but it talks about how Joker became the Joker, and it was, the events of one really bad day can be enough to push someone over the edge into just insanity, and that's what happened to Joker in that storyline. In this movie, it takes a little longer than one day, but you see how if just the certain conditions, it takes place in back in, I guess it should have been around the 70s or 80s in Gotham. Severe wealth and income inequality. The poor are really poor, and the rich get really rich, and that gap in between just keeps opening up. What the fuck am I saying? And the people at the bottom, you can only be squeezed so much, and people, it becomes a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a powder keg. It can blow at any minute. Everybody's on edge. The crime is outrageous. And then you have this guy who has kind of slipped through the cracks. He's very low income. He doesn't have a lot going on for him. It's cool how they did the reason he laughs was actually a condition, like a brain condition, where it causes him to laugh, uncontrollably and inappropriately, for no reason, and that makes him, it makes him more isolated because that's not to put too fine a point on it, but that's kind of a weird thing, and it would definitely alienate you from normal society. But then, it just through circumstances, losing a job, getting beat up, and then having severe hallucinations, you have this guy who's just, things just keep getting worse and worse, and finally he completely breaks with reality, breaks with any kind of morality. I'm fucking preaching here. Why are you guys listening to me? Have you turned this off yet? Are you really still there? Go watch the fucking movie. I'm gonna do another episode about this. I'm probably gonna get AJ and Drew on here, my nerd compatriots, and we'll give it a real review because I'm not doing it justice. I don't know why you would listen to this. So just go see the movie. I will say this though, in regards to all the backlash about the movie, maybe saying it glorifies like the loner, like the lone gunman, not trope, but that guy, you see these mass shooters, they all have that common thread where they're lonely, isolated people with, most of the time suffering from mental illness, and people are saying that this glorifies that. It really doesn't. All it does is it puts a human face on that. Like whether you like it or not, as horrific as the shit that some of these people have done is, they're still human beings. And everybody comes from somewhere. And maybe if we make ourselves more aware of some of the problems that these guys face that can contribute to that downward spiral into madness, so to speak, maybe we could be more aware and possibly prevent some of these guys from going nuts in the future. That's what I think, at least. But you guys can decide for yourself. So, moving on. Been house hunting lately. I don't know if you guys have probably heard it on some of the other episodes. So let me give you the full story here. Been looking for a new house since the end of spring. And it's been a pain in the ass because I've had to sell the house that I have. I've only been in this house for like 3.5 years now. And I got lucky enough to where I bought the house kind of cheap in a good neighborhood, good town that's, really booming and growing. So I can make some money off selling the house, But anybody out there, any homeowners out there, you'll know that if you're trying to sell one thing to buy another thing, it's hard, man. That's like if you watch the movie Armageddon when they're trying to dock the spaceship with the space station and both are spinning at the same time and you got to time it right and everything's got to line up. That's more or less what the hell this is. You know, you have to make everything work right. You have to sell this, and then you have to find someone who's willing to sell their house to you, you know, even knowing that you haven't fully sold yours yet and that your money is coming from the sale of that. So it's a lot of moving parts, and it's, you know, I've lost like 5 or 6 houses because they didn't want to sell to somebody with a home sale contingency, and it's fucking stressful, man. It's a lot of pressure on me and Betty, my wife. You know, it's easy to lose hope. It's easy to become kind of, you know, despondent and just you want to throw your arms in the air and just say fuck it. I don't know what else to do. Because, man, we lost one that we thought we had. We weren't out of attorney review yet, and all of a sudden they ended up getting a slightly better offer, and they just said, yep, sorry, we're going with somebody else. And boy, that was a kick in the balls. That was a serious kick in the balls, man. And it took a lot to try to find something after that. I mean, obviously, we needed something, so that made that kind of easy, but it hurt, man. That was a tough beat. So anybody else out there looking for houses, I feel for you. It's a struggle, man. It's not easy, and I don't want to do it again. So hopefully, when I buy this fucking house, I can stay there. It's brand new. I found one, by the way. Let's see if everything stays together. But yeah. So one thing I want to talk about today is being alone, isolation, loneliness, going solo, Dolo, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But this is something that a lot of guys deal with. A lot of people maybe don't notice it. Some people are better at being alone than others. But if you're alone for too long, it starts to fuck with your head. You know, like the old cabin fever. Have you ever heard that term before? Like, that's a real thing. And it may not be in the ways that you would think. Like, you know, not like you're just going to go nuts living in, you know, a room with, you know, 4 walls and that's it. I mean more in a way of it changes the way your personality, maybe not your personality, but it changes your behavior in a way where you start to kind of withdraw after a certain amount of time. You know, even if you're a social person, once you start if you get comfortable alone, it's easy to get too comfortable alone. And when you're too comfortable alone, it becomes uncomfortable to be around people. You know, people get on your nerves. People are annoying because you can't have things that's not quiet. People make noise. People make a mess. You get very set in your ways. And this is something that I experienced, you know, towards the end of the time when I was living alone before I got married. Like, you stay alone, you get used to your ways so much that any little change to the routine becomes like a major inconvenience. You know, I'm not going to say it's a major problem. I wasn't that bad, but it's seriously inconvenient. Like, I didn't even like if somebody stopped by my house. Like, what are you doing here? You didn't call? Like, we could have just met somewhere. Why do you have to be here? This is my own little fortress of solitude, you know? Maybe I'm weird for that. I don't know how other guys are with that. I've only talked to a handful about really living completely alone. Now that I think of it, not really many of my friends and people I know really do live completely alone or have. You know, a lot of guys, they move out of their parents' house right into a house with like a girlfriend or something. Not a lot of people have the chance to live completely on their own. Especially, you know, these times it's not cheap, it's not easy. I mean, if you're lucky enough to find somewhere that you can afford just by yourself, then that's great. But a lot of guys can't do that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really know where I was going with it, but I just think being alone, it starts to do something to you. I guess, you know, watching the Joker movie really made me think about it. but I feel like you can't just sit home all the time. A lot of guys, maybe you live alone, you don't have a girlfriend, you think, how the fuck am I going to meet anybody? All I do is go to work and go home. Like, I don't want to go out to a bar. Well, okay, you don't have to go out to a bar to meet women. You're not going to meet women at work, especially like if you're in construction. The odds of that are slim to friggin' none, And probably if you do meet women at work, they're, maybe not the most feminine women, so to speak. It's not really a job conducive to that. But my point is that you have to put yourself out there. There's so many things. I wish I had done more when I was single and lived alone. I wish I had. I wasted so much time just sitting home watching TV and playing video games. I could have been out doing stuff. There's so much fun shit. You take a class somewhere. You do an activity like, even when I was into CrossFit for a minute, and it was great. It was like a community going to classes and meeting other people with common interests. And you can't help but meet people in that sense. Even just going to the gym. Some guys go to a gym where it's like all dudes and brick walls and, all they have is dumbbells and chest press and, like the bench, and that's it. But most people obviously are going to go to a gym where there's a better ratio of men and women. But my point is that there's a lot of stuff out there that you could be doing. Why waste, the finite amount of time we have in our lives just sitting home? It's, there's so much better shit you could be doing than being on Xbox Live or fucking around on Instagram and shit. Like, get the fuck out there, man. Don't waste it. And maybe your goal isn't to meet a partner. Maybe your goal is, maybe you could just go out there and better yourself and have some experiences. Sitting home is not an experience. And it's comfortable, yeah. It's easy, shit, yeah. I did it. But there's a lot of shit to do out there, man. There's a lot of shit to see. One thing I never did, I was thinking about, would have been cool, is traveling alone. Well, I don't know how that would work. My kid's sister goes all over Europe. She lived in Luxembourg. I think she's in London now. But shout out to her. Shout out to Lexi. She's out there kicking ass. She got a great job, making good money. And she's seeing like every country in Europe. How many of you guys out there can say you did that? I can't say I did that. I've been to like 4 or 5 countries, which is a lot compared to some people, but compared to other people, that's dog shit, That's ugats. I've been to Italy for 24 hours. That's why I can say that. Yeah. But yeah, man, you got to put yourself out there. You can't recoil into yourself, because then you get that social anxiety. Then maybe you do go somewhere like a party and there's a lot of people around, and it's so different from what you're used to that you forget how to put yourself out there, and you're doing yourself a disservice. So get the fuck off the couch, guys. All right, so tonight is Wednesday, the 9th of October. I should have started off with that. But so tomorrow will be 4 years to the day since I took my wife on our first date. Now I know a lot of people like, I don't have all these anniversaries for all this stupid shit. Like, I have a wedding anniversary and that's it. Like, okay, that's fine. You do what you do. But me and my wife, we actually celebrate this because, for some reason we always remember our first date. Because I will say this, it was a pretty dope ass first date. Let me tell you what we did. So now, when I met my wife, she lived in Miami. Like, we were both on a trip to New Orleans separately. And then we met, and then it just so happened that a month and a half later, she had a trip planned to New York City with some of her friends. And so she hit me up, and I'm close to the city. She said, hey, maybe we can go out. Maybe we can meet up. And myself, looking at her Facebook picture where she was insanely hot, I said, you bet your ass we're going to meet up. So we went out we met up. She was staying in the city. She was in Manhattan. We met up at her hotel. We got a cab. I took her to the High Line, on the west side. It's a beautiful walkway. It used to be like an old, like, raised train tracks, and they made it into this really cool, like, artsy walkway with all kinds of cool little like benches and fountains and plants, and there's even parts where there's places you can eat stuff, a little like gelato place up there, and it's cool. It's a nice walk. You get a nice view of the river. You can see Jersey. So we walked through there, just talking, getting to know one another. It was cool. It was nice weather. It was October, so it was perfect for taking a stroll. Then we said, all right, fuck it, let's go find something to eat. So we just started walking. So I guess down there, that's the meatpacking district, I think, or Chelsea. I guess it's a little south of Chelsea. But either way, so we found this random little Italian restaurant. We were like the only people in there. Stopped and just got some nice food, a couple drinks. All right, kept a good conversation going, and then we took a cab to the Empire State Building. Went to the top, the tip top, as high as you can go. So up there, how picturesque is that? First date. Going to like the top of the world, like in New York City. You see everything. So if I could say so myself, that was a baller ass first date. We went down. We went to this little place in the I guess it's the West Village. This little place called Sweetwater Social. Either way, we went there, had more drinks, more good conversation. It was a beautiful night. Took it back to the hotel. Bing bang boom. The rest is history. So that was our first date. And if some of you guys think it's corny, so be it. But I really was lucky to find the wife that I found. She checks all the boxes. And the boxes she didn't check, she ended up checking over time anyway. In the sense that, for instance, me, I'm a nerd. She's not a nerd at all. She's some hot chick from Miami who's never watched a Marvel movie in her life, doesn't no idea what Harry Potter is, all that stuff. And then she embraced all that stuff with open arms because she knew that I liked it, I enjoyed it. And not everybody would do that for their partner. There's plenty of women who's like, really, that's what you like? Like that's so lame. Like, they would make you feel bad for liking the things you like. And shout out to my wife because she's never once done that to me. She's maybe made a few faces. I mean, nobody's perfect, but she's always been there to experience the things I like and give it a fair chance. So I want to say I was really lucky to get the wife that I have. And I love her very, very much. And hopefully she listens to this and I get a few brownie points. So this is like a nice little slick plant I'm putting in the podcast. But either way, so listen, I'm giving you guys like 20-something minutes. I'm not going to ramble on about nothing because I'm honestly not that interesting, which is a funny thing to say from someone who started a podcast. But yeah, reach out, give me some shout outs, some feedback. Let me know what you think of the episode. And if it sucks, you could just say, yeah, you know what, just find a guest. Just tell me, guest or no guest. I think it's a easy way to do it. That way you don't have to worry about being a dick, and I don't have to worry about, getting my feelings hurt. Get my poor little feelings hurt since I'm a delicate little snowflake. Yeah, I know. We don't talk about politics on this show, but I've been called a snowflake before. But I'll still fuck somebody up. One last thing, I want to give a shout out to Clio Stiller. She was a TV show host, a Peabody Award nominee. She's an author. She's writing a book. Well, the book's already written, but it's coming out on November 12th. It's called Modern Manhood, Conversations About the Complicated World of Being a Good Man Today. And I want to shout out her because she interviewed me for this book. So hopefully you guys will pick it up, show support. And it's a book basically about what this podcast is about. It's how to be a good man today in the post-Me Too world. There's a lot of bad info out there, a lot of guys who kind of find themselves in these gray areas where we're not really sure like what is wrong. It's not that we don't know what's right. It's that sometimes things, we have guidelines on what we should do instead of actual rules. Instead of knowing, okay, don't cross this line. Don't cross this line. They say, well, it could be considered this. You don't know exactly what the right thing to do is. Things get a little hairy. So this book is about that. It's about guys trying to navigate their way through this world that's gotten complicated. It's gotten more complicated than it used to be. And, for those of us that are out there trying to do the right thing, shout out to us. And this book is about that. It's a lot of interviews with a lot of people in a lot of different positions and having conversations about all these different issues. So, I mean, I haven't read the book yet, so I'm sure it's going to be good and very informative and entertaining. And hopefully I don't look like a moron in it. So hopefully you guys will go pick that up and go follow her, go check out her stuff. All right? That's going to be the episode for the week. I understand it's not maybe not what you guys were expecting, but I want to at least give you something for your commute to or from work. And hope next week we should be back on track with a normal episode number 40 for next week. But yeah, you guys know where to find us. If you're listening, you've probably been rocking with us for a little bit already. So look us up on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, all that good shit. You know our Instagram at APodAmongstMen. You like our memes, my memes. I make a lot of the memes. That's right. You see the watermark on there. That means I made it. If I didn't make it, I won't watermark it, which is fair. And if you have questions, either DM me on Instagram or reach out by email at APodAmongstMen@gmail.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks for tuning in. My apologies if this was a shitty episode and it wasn't what you wanted. But yeah, what are you going to do? You got screwed again, huh? All right, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.